Greetings from the VRILOCK Cult. This VRILOCK Occult report is in the public domain. Thank you for joining us. Enjoy.
This audio report is on the topic of the fear of spirits and the fear of the occult. Also, why you should invest in my VRILOCK practical guides to help you. Well, I can personally relate to the shared fear that our fellow humans have regarding spirits or ghosts. So I was visited upon frequently by spirits or entities. And, of course, this upset my parents with their religious views were being challenged by the supernatural or supposedly supernatural events which were surrounding me since my earliest toddler years. Nonetheless, spirit encounters can be frightening at times depending on the type of entity, for which there are many. And family-wise, as far as religious beliefs go, for example, my mom loved God on Fridays, but when Sundays or Mondays came around, she wanted nothing to do with God. So that stability wasn't always there. People are contradictionists, but when it comes to the occult mind, we must be focused like a laser beam, which my practical guides do help you to accomplish this. My practical guides are far easier to understand than the greater majority of occult and New Age books that are out there by the most popular publishing houses. So by all means, visit VRILOCK.CLUB, go to the shop page, and check out my practical guides, The Metaphysics of Self-Mastery, and the Miraculous Prayer Board Guide. Let's talk about the dangers of spirits. We need to consider whether or not we can justify our fear of the paranormal, our fear of ghosts and spirits, demons and such. And there are actually some dangers. Personally, from my experience, I had many encounters with poltergeist activities in my earliest years on up through my teen years, and I believe there was one or two incidents which occurred in my early 20s. But my young mind at the time accepted these so-called paranormal occurrences as ordinary life. For me, it became so, at least. So I was often expecting things to move and go bump in the night. Day or night really didn't seem to matter, I should say. Though these activities can be more profoundly frightening at night. And of course, there are some metaphysical reasons for why psychic energies tend to work a little better in the evening for certain activities. But on that subject, I'm going to digress for another report. Once while overseas and in the Arabian desert, where I lived for a short time, I had been I was a child at the time, talking to these apparent wind or dust spirits. And that's what I remember. I think I was about 6 or 7 at the time. Well, when we began our drive back to the house, a colossal sandstorm struck our car and the car in front of us without much warning. And my parents were terrified to such a degree that they actually allowed me to talk to my invisible friends or imaginary friends, which ordinarily that was something that we weren't allowed to do. It was sort of taboo or against the rules in our household to talk to imaginary friends. So I asked if these spirits would let us drive back home safely and cease the storm. And to our surprise, it was near instantly made to happen. The sand that was in the air dropped, and all was clear for miles. And my parents drove home in silence. And see, what had happened at the time is we were following a host or a guide out in the desert in Arabia, and a colossal sandstorm struck us, and we could not see the car in front of us. And we reached a point where we had to stop the car, and we were being buried alive in sand. So it was this experience, I've never forgotten it. And it goes to show that sometimes we have power over the spirit world more than we think. Well, here's another example. Years later, I was pressed down on my luck. I was a teenager, and it was my first breakup with a girlfriend. Spirit came to me that night, and it was a familiar spirit to me, which I had visited many times before. To make a long story short, I repelled it from my body, and my mother raced into the room and told it to go to the light, as most people think that this works. Well, the glass on the window, including the blinds, slammed inward or away from us by an invisible force, which then went up into the attic and stomped around. Then it grabbed the entire house by its foundation and shook it violently. Well, of course, my mother grabbed the Bible that she had difficulty making a commitment to, a lot of people do, I suppose, and told me to pray with her. And this seemed to only upset the spirit further. The house rattled harder and harder. A great wind slammed into the walls. And at one point I stood up and I asked the spirit if it would now stop and leave us, in a respectful but stern tone of voice. Well, the spirit complied and left quite peacefully, with the passing of some winds and some currents, and then all was silent. So in this sense, spirits can be intimidating, but now can they actually be violent in a sense of actually harming you? And the answer to this is yes. I know that there's some people who come on the radio and say that they can't hurt you, but I'm sorry, that's not true. Sometime when I was about 19 or 20, I was physically struck by a spirit. I felt something grab my arm, giving me what is called an Indian burn. So I tried to leave the kitchen to get away from it, but I was struck on the back of the head, back of the neck, which later I went to a doctor and found out that I had some damage back there. This incident was different from all other encounters I had with various spirits, because most spirits never tried to physically harm me per se. Most spirits seem to work with our energy centers or our emotions or thoughts, or communicate to us via images. They rarely physically strike us or do things like that, but it can happen. When I was about 19 or 20, just before this encounter with being physically assaulted by a spirit, I was invited by a young woman I knew in college who needed some help with a spirit harassing her, and particularly harassing her boyfriend in her house at night. So I eventually got around to doing some dowsing or divination work and confirmed my assumption about what was happening by some observations as well, by getting to know her boyfriend and going places with him, and basically found out he was a no-good filth. And this young woman seemed to have a rather overly protective spirit, or a possessive spirit, that wanted the boy to leave her alone. So this can happen as well. So I understood the dangers of spirits from an early age, and there's a lot more to be said about it. But my VRILOCK practical guides, the VPGs, have some good stories about my personal experiences in more depth, and some of my methods that I've learned for dealing with the occult in general, both from trial and error and from learning from past mentors. What tends to make me different from a lot of other experts out there is not that I know everything. I certainly am not omniscient, but that I'm willing to accept that I can be mistaken in my belief, and I'm willing to look at the truth that is hidden, which is the whole point of the occult, because the occult is the study of that which is hidden. And there is a lot of which can be said, which is better justified in writing, and for which my practical guides will greater serve my colleagues, prospective students, and new followers. For example, in Metaphysics of Self-Mastery, we learn about how to center in our true self at a beginner's level. Through this centering, we can approach the cosmic mind. Everyone on the planet, I believe, has had at one point in their life a glimpse of this cosmic mind. It may be a distant memory to you, or perhaps you're one who's in tune with it frequently, but you've never really guessed at what it really is. By working with the cosmic mind, we will bring helpful spirits to us instead of misleading, destructive spirits or entities that are harmful to us. Most people, whether they are religious or they fall into the category of esoterians or other categories of belief, Buddhism or other spiritual pursuits such as Odinism, people tend to go to the spirits first before making a relationship to the cosmic mind, what I call the cosmic intelligence system. Sort of like going to Buddha with prayer, or the Mother Mary in Catholicism, or Vishnu in Hinduism, or one of the saints in the Christian faith. Well, I believe we should find our true self first, and then open to the greater cosmic mind. Some call this the Father. I refer to this as the cosmic intelligence system. Others refer to it as the law. Well, this cosmic intelligence system will bring us true spirits which are helpful to us. And one should not be afraid of spirits because, frankly, spirits are in everything. The world is built upon the backbone, the foundations, the framework of a spiritual universe. Trees, grass, even inanimate objects have some degree of spirit matter in them. We are all spirits, embodied. So where are we now spiritually as a society? Well, most of our shamans, our village wisdoms, and the wizards of old are long bereft of nobility in modern society. So we don't have anyone we can go to. We are hearing more often how priests are corrupt, whether it be molestation or confusion about their faith, omitting religious names such as Christ from their speeches at church, or bringing in other religions into, say, their Christian religion. Confusion, corruption, chaos. Well, the solution, let's talk about a solution that you can get involved in right now. My prayer board, the Miraculous Prayer Board Guide, is the closest achievement to a quick fix or an instant solution for spiritual wellness and high spiritual achievement. I know this in my personal life. Some of my family has tried this instrument, and many of my colleagues are writing back to tell me about the success and high spiritual morale and change in their lives. You can't beat that. My prayer board is the closest achievement to a quick fix or an instant solution. And now let me tell you, the occult is not a quick fix. But if you're looking for something that'll change your life, follow my instructions and connect with us to learn about the prayer board and how this instrument can help you. It's so simple and easy to use. I can build a prayer board customly made for you and bless this instrument for you. I will include instructions for using your prayer board. Please go to our website, VRILOCK.CLUB, and subscribe to our awesome newsletter. Thank you for joining us. This is VRILOCK,
signing out.